I'm Sarah, 26 years old. My father chose my half-sister's birthday party over walking me down the aisle at my wedding. She scheduled it the exact same day, same time. I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I smiled and told him I understood. But what he didn't know was that I already had someone else in mind to take his place. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt completely abandoned by a parent who was supposed to love you unconditionally. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Let me explain how we got here, because this betrayal was 26 years in the making. When I was 8 years old, my father had an affair with his secretary. The affair destroyed our family and left my mother heartbroken and divorced. Dad married his secretary Carol within 6 months. They had Melissa 2 years later. The divorce was brutal. My mother was devastated, but she had help. My grandfather, who was a successful attorney, represented her and made sure she got everything she deserved. Dad never forgave him for that. After the divorce, I went to live with my grandfather. Not because my mother couldn't take care of me, but because Dad was too busy building his new perfect family to deal with his old one. From day one, it was clear that Melissa was the chosen daughter. Christmas mornings at Dad's house were like watching someone else's family celebrate. Melissa got piles of expensive gifts while I got one practical present. Her birthday parties were elaborate affairs with themes and decorations. Mine were dinner at a restaurant if I was lucky. When she wanted something, Dad moved heaven and earth to get it for her. When I needed something, I learned to ask my grandfather instead. The pattern was obvious to everyone except Dad, who genuinely seemed to believe he was being fair. But the real problem with Melissa wasn't just that she was favored. It was that she enjoyed it. She liked knowing she came first. She liked watching me get less. She liked being Daddy's special girl while I was just the reminder of his past mistakes. And her mother, Carol, encouraged every bit of it. Carol never liked me. To her, I was proof that her husband had a whole life before her. She treated me with polite coldness whenever I visited, making it clear I was an unwelcome guest in their perfect home. She raised Melissa to see me as competition rather than family. So when James and I got engaged last Christmas, I should have expected what came next. James had been my boyfriend for 3 years. He was kind, funny, successful, and completely devoted to me. Everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. He was also the boy who had rejected Melissa when we were teenagers. I'll never forget that summer when Melissa was 14 and I was 16. She developed this intense crush on James, following us around whenever he came over, trying to insert herself into our conversations. One day at a family barbecue, she cornered him by the pool and asked if he wanted to go out with her instead of me. James was gentle but firm. He told her he wasn't interested, that he only saw her as his girlfriend's little sister. I watched her face crumple with humiliation and rage. She ran into the house crying, and I knew she would never forgive either of us for that moment. When James proposed to me in front of the whole family at Christmas dinner, Melissa's smile looked like it was carved from ice. "Congratulations," she said sweetly. "I hope your wedding is everything you've ever dreamed of." I should have known she was already planning to make sure it wasn't. We set the date for May 18th, sent out save the dates to family in January. Everyone promised to be there, including Dad. For 4 months, everything went perfectly. James and I found the perfect venue, the perfect dress, the perfect flowers. We were planning the wedding of our dreams. Then, 6 weeks before the big day, Melissa made her announcement. She was throwing herself a 24th birthday party, a huge celebration with all her friends, a milestone birthday that absolutely had to be celebrated properly. On May 18th. When I pointed out that was my wedding day, she just shrugged. "Oh, what a coincidence. But you understand, right? I can't change my birthday." Coincidence. Right. This was the same girl who had somehow managed to have emergencies during every important event of my life. The same girl who always needed Dad's attention most when I needed it too. But this time felt different. This time felt like war, because I knew exactly why she was doing it. She wanted to prove, once and for all, that she mattered more to Dad than I did. She wanted to force him to choose between us on the most important day of my life. And she was confident she knew who he'd pick. The 6 weeks between Melissa's announcement and my wedding were psychological warfare. She posted constantly on social media about her milestone birthday celebration. She talked about how excited she was, how it was going to be the party of the year, how she couldn't wait to celebrate with all the people who really matter. The message was clear. If you really mattered to her, you'd choose her party over my wedding. Dad started making comments about how important this birthday was to Melissa, how she'd been looking forward to it for months, how it was such a shame about the scheduling conflict. Scheduling conflict. like my wedding date was some random appointment that could be moved around to accommodate Melissa's party. When family members called to ask about the situation, I stayed calm and polite. Melissa scheduled her party for my wedding day. I'd say simply, people will have to choose which event matters more to them. Most of our relatives were horrified. They told Melissa politely but firmly that they'd already committed to my wedding. They'd made travel arrangements, bought gifts, taken time off work. But Dad didn't say anything. 3 weeks before the wedding, I confronted him directly. Dad, are you coming to my wedding? Of course I'm coming to your wedding, Sarah. Don't be ridiculous. And Melissa's party? He got uncomfortable. Well, I'll probably stop by there too. You know how important this is to her. Dad, her party starts at the same time as my ceremony. You can't be at both. I'm sure we can work something out. There's nothing to work out. You have to choose. Sarah, please don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm not making anything hard. I'm asking my father to prioritize his daughter's wedding over a birthday party. It's not that simple. Actually, Dad, it is exactly that simple. But I could see in his eyes that he'd already made his choice. He just didn't have the courage to tell me. 2 weeks before the wedding, I stopped by Dad's house to drop off his boutonniere and finalize details. Melissa was there, surrounded by party planning materials. Decorations, guest lists, menu cards. Sarah, she said brightly, how's the wedding planning going? Fine, thanks. I'm so excited about my party. It's going to be amazing. Dad's been helping me plan everything. I looked at Dad, who couldn't meet my eyes. That's nice, I said evenly. You know, it's such a shame about the date conflict, Melissa continued. I really wish there was a way for everyone to celebrate both events. There is, I said. You could reschedule your party. Oh, but the venue is already booked, and all my friends have made plans. It would be impossible to change now. How thoughtful of you to consider that. She smiled that ice-cold smile again. I'm sure everything will work out perfectly for both of us. 1 week before the wedding, Dad finally called me. Sarah, we need to talk. About what? About the situation with Melissa's party. What about it? Well, you know how much this means to her. She's been planning it for months, and she's so excited. I've been planning my wedding for over a year. Yes, but this is different. This is her first real adult birthday celebration. And this is my only wedding. Sarah, I need you to understand. Melissa really needs me there. She's counting on me. And I'm not counting on you? Silence. Dad, let me make this simple for you. If you go to Melissa's party instead of my wedding, you will never walk me down any aisle, ever. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. Choose carefully. Sarah, choose, Dad, your daughter's wedding or your daughter's birthday party, but understand that this choice will define our relationship forever. I hung up before he could respond, but I wasn't devastated. I wasn't even surprised, because I'd spent 18 years living with my grandfather, and I'd learned something important about family. Real family shows up when it matters. Real family chooses you when it's hard. Real family doesn't make you compete for love. And if my biological father couldn't understand that, well, I had another father figure who'd proven his love every day for 18 years. The man who had raised me when Dad couldn't be bothered. The man who had never missed a single important moment in my life. The man who deserved the honor of walking me down the aisle more than anyone else in the world. I just hadn't told him yet. The week of my wedding, I still hadn't heard from Dad. No phone calls, no texts, no attempt to explain his choice or ask for forgiveness. He'd made his decision, and now he was avoiding the consequences. Meanwhile, Melissa was in full celebration mode. She posted photos of her dress, her decorations, her party preparations. She was documenting every detail of her triumph. She'd won. She'd forced Dad to choose, and he'd chosen her. But what she didn't understand was that her victory was about to become her biggest mistake. Because while she'd been focused on taking something away from me, I'd been focused on finding something better. 3 days before the wedding, I visited my grandfather. He was in his garden, tending to the roses he'd been growing for 30 years. The same garden where he'd taught me about patience and nurturing and the difference between things that grow wild and things that need careful attention. How are you feeling about Saturday? He asked without looking up from his pruning. Excited, I said honestly. Ready. And your father? What about him? Has he called? No, and he won't. Grandpa Joe straightened up and looked at me with those wise eyes that had seen me through every crisis of my life. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Don't be, I'm not. No? Grandpa, I need to ask you something important. Anything. Will you walk me down the aisle? His eyes filled with tears immediately. Sarah, you're the man who raised me. You're the man who taught me what love looks like. You're the man who showed up for every important moment when he couldn't be bothered. It would be the greatest honor of my life. Good. Because you're the only person I want giving me away. We hugged in that garden surrounded by the roses he'd spent decades nurturing, and I felt a peace I'd never experienced before. This wasn't plan B. This wasn't settling for second choice. This was choosing the right person for the right reasons. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and perfect. I woke up in my childhood bedroom at Grandpa Joe's house, surrounded by the memories of the man who had actually raised me. My bridesmaids arrived early to help with hair and makeup. They kept asking nervous questions about my father, but I deflected with calm confidence. Everything is exactly as it should be, I told them. At noon, my phone buzzed with notifications from social media. Melissa's party had begun. She was posting photos of herself in an elaborate gold dress, surrounded by decorations, posing with Dad. She looked triumphant. In one photo, Dad was giving a toast. The caption read, "My dad calling me his greatest joy on my special day." His greatest joy. I felt something settle in my chest, but it wasn't heartbreak. It was clarity, because seeing those photos confirmed what I'd always known but never wanted to admit. I had never been his greatest joy. I had never been his priority. I had never been his chosen daughter, but I had been someone else's greatest joy for 18 years, and that someone else was about to walk me down the aisle. At 2 o'clock, guests started arriving at the church. I watched from the bridal suite window as cars pulled up. Uncle Mark and Aunt Linda, my cousins, James's family, friends from college and work. Everyone who had promised to be there was keeping their promise. Everyone except the one person who should have mattered most. But I wasn't sad anymore. I was anticipating. Because in 1 hour, everyone in that church was going to witness something extraordinary. They were going to see what real love looked like. They were going to see what loyalty looked like. They were going to see what it meant to be chosen by the right person. And somewhere across town, at a birthday party that was about to lose its shine, my father was going to start getting some very uncomfortable questions. At 2:30, family members started calling. "Sarah, where's your father? People are asking." "He's not coming," I said simply. "What do you mean he's not coming?" He chose to attend Melissa's birthday party instead. The silence on the other end of the phone spoke volumes. "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect. Better than perfect." "But who's going to walk you down the aisle?" "You'll see." I had the same conversation 4 times. Each person went from shock to outrage to concern for me, but I felt nothing but excitement, because I knew that in 30 minutes I was going to surprise everyone in the most beautiful way possible. At 2:45, my phone rang one last time. Dad's number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Sarah, I need to explain." "Are you at my wedding, Dad?" "No, but..." "Then there's nothing to explain. People here are asking me why I'm not at your wedding. They're saying terrible things. Maybe because what you're doing is terrible." "Sarah? Please, can I still come? I can leave the party now." "To do what? Show up for pictures after missing the ceremony?" You thought maybe you could have it both ways. Support Melissa when it mattered to her and still get credit for being at my wedding." That's exactly what you thought. But you can't have both, Dad. You made your choice. I made a mistake. You made a choice. The same choice you've been making my entire life. Sarah. Goodbye, Dad. Enjoy the party. I hung up and turned off my phone. At 2:55, the music started. My bridesmaids lined up outside the sanctuary doors. They were all crying with happiness because they understood what was about to happen. They knew who was waiting for me at the back of that church. They knew who had earned the right to give me away. I took my place behind the closed doors and felt my heart pound with anticipation. Not nervousness. Not sadness. Pure, joyful anticipation. Because I was about to walk down that aisle with the man who had never once let me down. The man who had taught me that love is spelled T-I-M-E. The man who had shown me what it meant to be someone's priority. Have you ever had a moment when you realized that the person you needed was right there all along? When you stopped waiting for someone to choose you and started appreciating someone who already had? Drop a comment and let me know, because what happened next was pure magic. The sanctuary doors opened and I stepped into view. But I wasn't alone. Walking beside me, his arm steady and strong under mine, was my grandfather in his finest suit. Distinguished, proud, and beaming with the kind of love that can't be faked. The gasp that went through the church was audible. Every single person turned to look, expecting to see my father behind us. Expecting this to be some kind of procession where Dad would appear at any moment. But the space behind us was empty, and the message was clear. As we walked down that aisle, every step deliberate and meaningful, I could see the realization dawning on faces throughout the church. Uncle Mark's mouth fell open. Aunt Linda started crying immediately. My cousins looked around in confusion, still expecting Dad to materialize. But James, my beautiful James, understood immediately. His face broke into the most radiant smile I'd ever seen, and I saw pride and love and respect shining in his eyes. He knew who was walking me down that aisle. He knew who deserved that honor. He knew that this moment was about more than just a wedding ceremony. When we reached the altar, Grandpa Joe stopped and turned to face the congregation. In a voice strong and clear enough for everyone to hear, he spoke words that would echo in that church forever. "Who gives this woman to be married to this man?" Pastor Williams, recovering from his own surprise, prompted the traditional response. "I do," Grandpa Joe said firmly. "I have had the privilege and joy of raising Sarah from a young girl into the remarkable woman she is today. Today, I am honored to place her hand in the hand of a man who will love her the way she has always deserved to be loved." The church was dead silent except for the sound of people crying. He placed my hand in James's, kissed my forehead gently, and whispered, "I'm so proud of you." Then he took his place in the front row, where the father of the bride should sit, where he had always belonged. James squeezed my hand and whispered, "That was perfect." Pastor Williams, clearly moved by what he'd just witnessed, began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Sarah and James, surrounded by the people who truly love and support them." The emphasis on truly was not lost on anyone. As the ceremony continued, I felt a peace and rightness I'd never experienced before. This was how it was supposed to be. This was what it looked like when you were surrounded by people who chose you. This was what it felt like to be loved by the right people for the right reasons. When it came time for vows, James looked directly into my eyes and said something that made my grandfather beam with pride. "Sarah, you have taught me that family is not just about blood, but about the people who show up consistently with love and support. Today, surrounded by people who truly value us, I promise to always choose you, to always prioritize you, to never make you question where you stand in my life." When Pastor Williams pronounced us husband and wife, the kiss we shared tasted like freedom and new beginnings. As we walked back down the aisle as a married couple, I caught sight of faces in the congregation. Everyone was crying. Everyone was smiling. Everyone understood that they had witnessed something extraordinary. They had seen a daughter finally be valued by the right person. They had seen what real love and loyalty looked like, and they knew that this moment was going to have consequences that reached far beyond our wedding day. Outside the church, people surrounded us with congratulations and praise. "Sarah, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Aunt Linda said through her tears. "Your grandfather was absolutely perfect," Uncle Mark added. "That's exactly how it should have been." But the most meaningful comment came from James's grandmother, who had been married for 60 years. "Young lady," she said, taking my hands in hers, "you just showed everyone in that church what it means to honor the people who honor you. That was wisdom beyond your years." As we posed for photos with my grandfather, my phone started buzzing with messages. But they weren't from Dad. They were from people at Melissa's party. The messages coming in during our photo session painted a picture I wished I could see with my own eyes. "Sarah, people here are asking your dad where he is. He looks really uncomfortable. Everyone at this party knows about your wedding. They're all talking about how they can't believe he's here instead. Melissa is getting upset because people keep asking about you instead of celebrating her. Your dad just stepped outside to take a phone call. He looks sick." I showed the messages to James, who was trying not to laugh during our formal photos. "Karma works fast," he whispered. "It sure does." The reception was everything we'd dreamed it would be. My grandfather's speech was the highlight of the evening. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the room, "I want to tell you about the greatest privilege of my life." The room fell silent. 26 years ago, a little 8-year-old girl came to live with me. She was heartbroken and confused, wondering why her world had fallen apart. I could see people wiping their eyes already. But that little girl taught me something about resilience, about strength, about the difference between giving up and growing up. He looked directly at me. "Sarah, you have become everything I hoped you would be, and more. You are kind without being naive, strong without being bitter. And you have learned the most important lesson of all, that you deserve to be chosen first." The applause was thunderous. "James, you are receiving a woman who knows her own worth. Treasure that. Protect that. Because women like Sarah don't come along often." After dinner, as people danced and celebrated, my phone rang. Dad's number. James nodded encouragingly. "Take it." "Hello?" Sarah? Dad's voice was strained and desperate. I need to talk to you. I'm at my wedding reception, Dad. You know, the wedding you missed. About that, I heard that your grandfather walked you down the aisle. That's correct. How could you do that to me? I felt something cold settle in my chest. How could I do what to you? You brought him to your wedding. You let him take my place. Do you have any idea how humiliated I am right now? You're humiliated? Everyone here is asking me why I'm not at my daughter's wedding. They're looking at me like I'm some kind of monster. Maybe because your behavior is monstrous. Sarah, you don't understand what you've done. You brought the man who destroyed my life to take my place at your wedding. The man who destroyed your life? Or the man who made sure you faced consequences for destroying ours? He turned everyone against me after the divorce. He made sure my mother got what she deserved after you cheated on her. That's not the point. That's exactly the point. You're not upset that you missed my wedding, Dad. You're upset that people are judging you for missing my wedding. I need you to fix this. Can you tell people there was a misunderstanding? And there it was. He wasn't calling to apologize. He was calling to ask me to manage the consequences of his choices. No. What do you mean, no? I mean, no, I will not lie to protect you from the results of your own decisions. But Melissa's party is ruined. Everyone here is talking about your wedding instead of celebrating her. That's interesting, because my wedding is perfect. Sarah, please. Dad, I need to go. My husband and I have a reception to enjoy. You know, our wedding reception. The one you missed. I hung up before he could respond. 2 hours later, he showed up at the reception. Dad appeared at the entrance to our reception hall looking desperate and disheveled. He was still wearing his party clothes from Melissa's celebration, but his hair was messy and his tie was crooked. He looked like a man who had just realized he'd made the worst mistake of his life. Uncle Mark approached him immediately. Robert, what are you doing here? I need to talk to Sarah. You missed her wedding. I know, I made a mistake. I need to fix this. Word spread quickly through the reception that Dad had arrived. Conversations stopped. People turned to stare. James squeezed my hand. What do you want to do? I looked across the room at this man who had chosen a birthday party over his daughter's wedding, and I felt nothing but clarity.